Welcome everybody. Today we are here to talk about artificial intelligence and cancer. AI is changing how we detect and treat cancer, offering new hope. The hope to bring about a decline in the rising cancer cases in India. But with hope also comes into light new questions. Let's discuss how we can use this new age technology to improve lives. So how do you see AI transforming and helping in the early detection and diagnosis of cancer?
First of all, I congratulate and thank you, Jagran, for organizing this wonderful session about AI. As we know, artificial intelligence and machine learning is an emerging area in the health and agriculture and all other fields. So, being a new technology, this technology have high potential about early detection. And cancer, if when we're talking about the cancer, the best treatment of cancer is the early detection. If we detect cancer in very early stage, we protect our patient, 60% patient from the death, around 40% tobacco related and 20% infection related. So artificial intelligence, which is a vision of our own Prime Minister also and Government of India, these has a huge amongst potential to protect, early detect, and to provide the personalized treatment. Being an emerging technology, there are some limitations also.
Yes. So my next question is for Dr. Vikram. Dr. Vikram, your expertise is radiology. So how do you think AI is helping the way radiologists approach the reading and interpretation of scans, MRIs, mammograms, especially in the context of cancer?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here with such an amazing panel. So basically, impact of AI gonna be huge, and we're gonna see it in next 5 years. I call it as a second revolution in imaging sciences. According to me, first revolution was introduction of microprocessors, which led us to development of CTs and MRIs, which has multifold increased the scans and our potential to diagnose the diseases at earlier stage. What AI gonna be doing is it would offload 60-70% of the repeated tasks what a radiologist have to do on daily basis, and with the lakhs of patients' data, it has the ability to diagnose cancers. Like we were talking about breast cancer, it can diagnose even 4 to 5 years prior to development of a fully blown cancer.
We all know, it is a known fact that as compared to many other countries, healthcare in India is booming, it's cost effective, it is advanced. So my next question is for Mr. Deepak. Why the need of generative AI, and what are the particular challenges that we are trying to actually encounter or maybe try to counter right now?
Cool. First of all, I disagree with the question itself. Even if I have tons of money, I don't want to spend on medical healthcare, right? No one wants to do so. Countries anyways, our country is anyway spending a lot of money on health as a cost, and government being the largest insurer, this is going to increase. So, but even having said that, the doctor and patient ratio and the physical location of these two personas, one is the patient, one is the doctor, is so different in this country, right? 1 is to 1500 as per WHO, and majority of the patients are in remote. So AI can help bridge this gap, right? When a doctor needs to spend a lot of time with the patient, how can the documentation with an AI voice to RX kind of a model can help doctors save a lot of time and see more patient in the same session. Languages, so if the doctor is in metro city and patient is far, 500 kilometers away, just the language, it could be so different. The AI can just help with the large language models, and it's happening today. All of this what I'm talking is happening today. We've been doing this. So it saves a lot of time for doctors rather than understanding the local nuances. Doctors are now straight away getting into the diagnosis. Preparation of just seeing the patient, especially in the case of cancer, requires a lot of documentation to be seen, right? And for doctors also need to do a lot of documentation. And doing all that, every doctor is stressed with the amount of time they're spending on. We work with large institutes where doctors are spending time with patients, and then they are spending time in documentation. All these solutions can simply just change within AI, And this revolution is happening. I would say the speed of change is happening far better now and far faster than anything else we've seen in the past.
Yes,
So it's a reality.
Yeah, yeah. I also feel it is also because of the acceptance of even medical professionals, because they're also trying to evolve with time. So my next question is for Resham. Resham, with the rise of AI tools for diagnosis and treatment, what skills, as per you, should healthcare professionals develop to effectively work alongside these technologies? Specifically, like Deepak had mentioned, where there are lesser resources, connectivity issues, geographical constraints, and even a language barrier.
Thank you, Vani. Am I audible? Yeah. Thanks, Vani. Thank you, Megha. It's been a pleasure to be here and share the space with each one of you. So thank you for having me. The common denominator for my conversation throughout all the questions is going to be keeping in mind the underserved and underrepresented communities in India and across the LMICs. So in order to answer to your questions, when we're talking about skills in terms of working with AI tools, it's not about regular health professionals becoming data scientists or data engineers or learning how to build models or data sets. I think it's very fundamental to having a digital fluency. And by digital fluency, I mean being able to collaborate with technology, being able to understand how technology works, being able to use their creative abilities, their critical thinking to ask the right questions, and also not to completely believe in what the AI tools are suggesting to them. So for example, it could be if a certain AI tool is suggesting that there is an early warning sign of cancer. It's not necessary that a clinician should completely believe them. AI is always a second set of eyes, but there's a lot of experience that goes in medical professionals, and I think they should focus on their capabilities first and only use AI systems and technologies to complement their work. In terms of investing in healthcare skills, I think it's more so about investing in becoming digitally competent of how to work with technologies, training to build trust in these technologies, and also being able to work with them in low resource settings. Thank you.
I feel, like we said, it is very important for all of us to evolve with time, and this is the need of the hour right now, where we are talking about AI and how AI can help us treat and diagnose, at least diagnose cancer well in time. So my next question is for you, Dr. Ashok. Your expertise is biochemical data. What are the most promising AI techniques for analyzing biochemical data to improve cancer detection in terms of accuracy?
See, when we're talking about AI in the cancer detection or any other disease, data is very important. And data, if data purity, what type of data we are entering, AI tell about that thing. So like in cancer, Dr. Singh with us, radiologist, we need a radiological image, MRI image, CT scan, X-rays, ultrasound image. Laboratory data we required, all clinical data, biochemical data. Along with that, we also need the molecular data, genomic data, epigenomic data, proteomics data. So recently in AIIMS, with the help of our clinical team, we have developed one prototype system, ioncology.ai. So that system developed by us, AIIMS and CDAC Pune team. This is still in the very early stage, and we deploy in different cancer centers. This software we developed for ovarian and breast cancer. So around 4 than 5 million image public data set we taken that one, along with 2,500 patient data, retrospective and prospective, we included that one. And I'm happy to say that more than 89% accuracy we got it. So all this data we need to merge. And such kind of technology not developed by a single man, it required a team. So team from clinical team, molecular biologists like me, and radiologist, computational biologists, bioinformatics, all people, all the field we required work together like a team. Then such kind of technology will come out. And as soon as data will increase, the accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity will increase. So all these are the basic requirement, and this kind of technology will emerge with time.
Yes.
So that is the basic requirement.
Like Dr. Ashok said, there are so many components that are involved when we talk about data checking. So, Dr. Vikram, what according to you are the most important factors while using AI and remote radiology to connect distant patients with healthcare providers?
So basically, the issue with remote areas is disparity between doctors and patients ratio. So in India, for every lakh patient, there is a single radiologist. And in rural areas and suburb areas, this increases multiple fold times. So, and in most of the places, like I would say 30 to 40% places, even in today's remote places, there is no radiologist at all. So what AI can help us is in getting the work, initial work done, and then providing this data to remote areas where, in urban areas where the radiologists are sitting. And there is always issue of skill set, developing a skill set in remote areas. If you talk about the grade 4 worker to the doctor itself, there is huge difference between the skill set. So this AI also helps you to do imaging and acquire imaging in a better way, which can help these to develop people better skill set, and this can further help to offload the amount of cases a doctor is expected to do. Right now, if we go with the stats, a single radiologist is doing 34 cases per day. That's the optimal number of cases a radiologist should do. But in India, according to stats, nowadays we are required to do 100 cases per radiologist. And this is when we are averaging out between urbans and rural areas. So in rural areas, this is much higher. So AI would be connecting everyone. It would be automating the process, like measuring the size of the lesion, taking out the volume of the lesion, and corroborating, especially in cancer patient, corroborating the present image with the previous image, so that we can tell if the patient is improving or it is downgrading.
When we see the trends in India and even worldwide reveal a sharp rise in cancer cases in India and of course worldwide as well, how is the industry preparing to face the challenge head on, and where do we stand now with AI already in use? Because you being a co-founder to a health tech company, so Deepak, could you please share your viewpoint on it?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost thing is for the healthcare providers to use AI. So I would like to start with the question, how many people in this room use some sort of AI in their day-to-day job? ChatGPT, Gemini is of the word. I think the first job would be to have this hand raises much more. I was speaking at a college just before. Absolutely almost 100 people, out of 100% of the people had their hands raised. So that's what's happening at the college. And when I asked the second question, that how many people pay for ChatGPT today or Gemini or paid version of AI, that number was 60, 70. Probably this room would be not even 5%. So I think the first and foremost is to have the trust on technology. The technology is based on large data sets, which means the intelligence of the computer. So today, for example, when we build AI, we have 2,000 hours of conversation in multi-languages, which helps us translate in ambient mode a conversation between doctor and the patient. So I think that's the one thing. On the AI thing, I was also, I was in a conversation with a large company called Google. Their deep mind, which is on a radiology, can figure out more breast cancer compared to a radiologist on a real-time word. And as a gentleman sitting next to me said, there is a massive pressure on radiologists itself. Solutions like this. So we were discussing, in fact, today morning, right, how can oral cancer be detected from the back of the camera? The early stages, right? The one thing, even in the last conversation when we were having the guest on the stage, the most critical thing in cancer is early detection and documentation, right? The two things they mentioned. I think both the areas AI is present already and getting far better day by day. So its adoption of this AI will we make, an Indian AI model which will work for a large population across the country, will save a lot of time and a lot of money.
Resham, how do you think we should ensure that the new technologies like AI are implemented ethically, or the data set that is presented with its use is accurate for making the right treatment decision?
Thank you, Ani. I think that's a very important question, especially because India doesn't really have an ethical AI framework as yet, but it does have a DPDP Act. So there are a lot of ethical AI frameworks or ethical AI policy guidelines that's been established by a lot of other organizations like OECD, IEEE. However, I think it's very important that we have these ethical frameworks contextualized to India, because demographics is different, geographies are different, where different skin tones are different. So certain data sets that have been used in different countries may not really be as useful as it should be in India. So for example, imagine a certain AI tool has been developed and has been tested. So by the way, AI is as good as the data it's been trained on, like you said earlier, right? So keeping that in mind, imagine an AI tool has been developed in a high-income country at a high resource setting in an urban hospital and tested there with amazing quality of devices, amazing infrastructure, all of that. And the same AI tool is being used to deploy in a low resource setting in India or any other global south country. Do you really think it's going to work? It's not. Even our skin foundations is customized to our skin. Why can't the tools be customized to different geographies and populations, right? So while we're talking about ethical frameworks, while we are keeping in mind the typical common denominators of privacy, informed consent, reducing the biases, I think one thing that's very important is to have the data sets contextualized to India, localized to the population, and tested. So while we're developing AI frameworks, ethical AI frameworks, it's very important to have the communities who are going to use the AI tools become a part of the design processes, so as to know how these frameworks can be tested in real life settings. Because a lot of tools, a lot of frameworks that have been developed in laboratories may not really work well in real life settings. Things can be very different when we go to grassroots, when we go to rural and tribal communities, right? So I think one important thing is to involve different stakeholders together in developing ethical AI frameworks for India, contextualize it to the data sets, develop data sets that's relevant to the Indian population, and test the AI tools as well as different AI apps on those data sets. Only then it's going to be useful for our population to improve the health outcomes. Thank you.
So you very rightly mentioned about the limitations that we have, Resham. So Dr. Ashok, आप मुझे बताइए, do you think there are also any kind of limitations when we talk about using AI/ML tools in terms of biochemistry data, in terms of data checking, in terms of data setting and checking the accuracy of it?
See, when we're talking about AI in health, we are talking about responsible AI. Okay, as Dr. Sethi said that ethical issue, yes, definitely there are a lot of ethical issues, and this AI not for everyone, especially in the health field. AI is to assist the clinician. End user is the clinician, he will take the final decision. For example, radiologist with us, any image is there, so he has some decision, but some other radiologist, their other opinion. So AI will help to early detect in small tumor, but final decision has been taken by the clinician. Whether it's a tumor or not. Similarly, like when treating the patients, different patients is different. So they are respond particular drug in different way. So AI with the help of laboratory data and genomics and epigenomics data, it further help the clinician, medical oncologist in the OPD to provide the more accurate and personalized treatment. So this kind of AI app is not for the general public. It is just to assist the clinician to better diagnose, to better make a better treatment plan. Yeah. So these are the limitations. And second thing, again, depend on the quality of data. In this regard, my technology partner WonderX, we developed some tool, when any prescription written by the doctor is automatically digitalized and enter into the in same form in the software iOncology data. So data quality definitely is priority for the make a good AI in the healthcare.
Like though we know that how AI is the next big thing when we talk about healthcare in India, but now that this is a discussion, Dr. Vikram, what do you feel that with AI getting so much of importance when we talk about disease detection or even for treatment options, do you think this also poses as a threat or maybe also comes as an extra burden on the healthcare professionals today to learn the nuances of AI? Because like we said, we need to know what is right, what is wrong. So what is your thought on this?
So this has been like discussion amongst radiologist groups since 15 years now.
Yeah.
So we have a professor in Harvard when we were there. So he used to tell that AI would not replace you. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Yeah. But radiologist who does not use AI would be replaced.
Yes.
So it's like amalgamation of radiologist and the technology.
Yeah.
The way we are using many of the apps on our phones, devices, so that ways AI would be helping us. So continuing with Dr. what Ashok sir has said, AI what it does, it gives you a confidence score from 1 to 10. It will score a lesion whether AI thinks it is a lesion more being towards cancer. So it would get a 9 or a 7. And if it thinks it is towards a benign lesion, which is not cancerous, it would give 1, 2, 3. So this is how AI would be helping us rather than replacing us.
Deepak, I would like to know your viewpoint that how do you envision AI fundamentally changing the landscape of cancer treatment in the next 5 to 10 years? We can also talk about the rural and urban setup over here. And what role do you think your company will play in this sort of transformation?
I'll go back to my earlier point, which is very, very critical, is earlier detection. I would suggest, like the earlier panelist was saying, that she was, kind of self-detecting, trying to figure out regularly. I think there'll be more apps on our devices. Device in everyone's hand is a mobile phone, which has a lot of capabilities now with the camera, and there'll be question answer and sensors, etc., etc. So there'll be ultra early detection, which means the probability of anyone getting better would be far, far, far better in the near future. I'm super optimistic about technology, so I would say it will not take 5 years. It will be even faster because the change after the whole AI, this ability to change things have been, multiplied by 100x literally. I've seen this in all my career working in technology. So I think that will happen. The second fundamental thing, was earlier discussed by the patient is the caregiver responsibilities, right? It is very, very hard for a patient to go through the whole journey. And as we all know that doctors are so busy, the hand-holding during the procedure post that is very hard. Patient cannot just go back to doctor again and again getting clarifications, right? It's very hard problem. Those problems will get sorted very, immediately, right? There'll be bots very, very soon. There are some in production already at a lot of hospitals. One I know for sure at Tata Memorial in Mumbai, which is helping patients throughout their journey. There is ABDM, which is solving the whole documentation problem for caregiver. So these two problems are getting solved in, I would say, next year or so at a large scale across the country. And the good part about AI, it doesn't differentiate between metro and rural, right? And with AI, India AI, I think the languages problem has been solved. So this will, when this get implemented, this will get implemented across the country.
Yes. Resham, my next and the last question is for you. Coming from your experience in the digital health initiative segment, what are the key challenges in integrating AI into existing cancer care workflows, especially where there are fewer resources, like we're talking about the urban and the rural divide?
So I'll not limit my answer only to cancer care because I think we need to have a very multi-sectoral approach. So India is a lovely country, but we cannot overlook the fact that there are a lot of disparities that exist between the urban, rural, and tribal communities. We also cannot overlook the fact that at one end we have advanced hospitals, AIIMS, like from the government point of view, but also great private sector hospitals. But at the same time, there is a massive disparity when you go and look at the primary healthcare centers or sub-centers or health and wellness centers at the grassroots. You should go visit once, and then you should come back to such talks where we are having all ambitious plans about AI. The problem is there is a lack of public infrastructure. So when I was in Nagaland, and Nagaland is like 93% tribal communities, and we wanted to, as doing a landscaping on digital health and AI, and people didn't even know what digital health is. They had just come out one step from the forest area, and they said, ma'am, let's forget digital health, can we get physical infrastructure first? Right? So these are basic realities which we cannot overlook. So while we are having ambitious plans and government is doing an amazing job, the problem is there's a lack of implementation where different organizations can come together and collaboratively work. So when we talk about challenges, I think one challenge is a lack of public infrastructure, the fundamental. Then there's a lack of digital infrastructure, and on that there comes an AI layer, right? Now AI is definitely a very powerful force, like he mentioned, to reach the last mile communities. And sometimes you don't really need a solid digital infrastructure at the rural healthcare settings, but we do need some aspects of it. Second, there is a massive workflow inefficiencies. So healthcare workers are exorbitantly burdened with the current scenario in terms of doctor-patient ratio, etc. So we have to really integrate the AI layers into the system in such a way that they can absorb it and sustain it moving forward. So we need to not burden the healthcare workforce even more, but reduce their burdens. And the last, what I would say, is developing fit-for-purpose infrastructure and developing certain data sets on which AI can be used. We are having a lot of data, and everybody says we've got a big data, great. But it's not structured data on which AI can be trained, on which AI systems can be really trained for, right? So I think these small nuances are fundamental, which needs to be addressed. So while we are having ambitious plans, we need to also focus on the implementation of these plans. Thank you.
So this was the end to our panel, AI and Cancer, Transforming Diagnosis and Treatment. I know we have touched base upon very fewer things about how AI can help in early cancer detection. And of course, the whole event is all about how AI and cancer can be integrated together in reducing the number of cases in India. So thank you so much for being here with us today and taking our time.